Hey guys, this is Anthony Morganti from AnthonyMorganti.com, and this is episode 202 of Photo Critiques. And in this episode, I'm pleased to critique the work of Dave. Now, I don't know Dave's last name, he didn't tell me. He has everything kind of labeled photography, so maybe his name's Foster. I don't know. But, anyways, Dave sent me in he sent me in a lot of images, and he asked me if I could please do every one because he's trying to make a business here of his photography, and I'm glad to help him out. So I'm going to do a lot of these images, and all 30 of them. He sent me 30. So guys, if you buckle up and we'll go through them, and I'll try to do them as efficiently as possible, with that offering as much help as I can. Now, this first shot, I think it's a really nice shot in a lot of ways. I think it would be a perfect shot. I could see a diner, a restaurant, having this photograph hanging on their wall. Fine. There's a couple things though that you need to do to push this over the top. First of all, when you took the shot, if you don't have one already, get a circular polarizer because you don't want any reflections in this shot. We want this because this is the focal point. This is what you're focusing on. We don't want these reflections here. They're just distracting. So you want to use a circular polarizer and get rid of those reflections. That's the number one. Number two is this down here. It's just, I don't know, it just kind of looks like it's dirt or something, but it's really, I know from the drink. Just clone that out. It'll only take a second. If you have Photoshop, it would literally probably take you 10 seconds. If you do it in Lightroom, it might take you 20 seconds. But it doesn't matter. Just clone those out and get rid of those. So a circular polarizer and clone that out. And I think that your composition, the way you use the focus, and the autofocus part is brilliant. Really well done. This is a nice shot. Selective color. I like it. I like what you did. It's a really cool shot. This is a fine art image. As I mentioned, it's difficult to critique a fine art image because it's in the eye of the photographer. And I think, though, I really like this. This is a really nice shot. This shot here, which I'm going to mention a few times in your images, I think you got to be really more careful with light. I like the idea you were going for. You're recording this church, but the light is so harsh, and we have these really harsh shadows, and this harsh shadow being cast from all the steeples and gables and everything on this church. So we really have to come here at a different time of day or when it's slightly overcast so that we could get a different look, so it's just not as harsh light. The other thing with the processing, I'm not sure what you were doing because it's got this weird kind of effect through a lot of the shot. I don't know if you were going for like that miniature look where you kind of have it out of focus down here and out of focus up here, maybe, but I don't think it really worked too well in this shot. So I would rather see you come back here when there's better light and shoot at f11 so you get the crispest picture possible, and make sure it seems to be tilted a little bit too. It's hard to say. It's because this is such a weird kind of angle. You're almost over it, shooting straight down on it, and so it's kind of hard to tell. But it looks like this side's a little lower than this side. So anyways, it could be an optical illusion too because of the stuff in the foreground. But that's what I would suggest, and I would say the better light would help a lot, and I would abandon this blur, whatever that was that is going on there. This is a really nice shot. Did a real nice job on this shot. Another one with selective color, or kind of selective color, like just little bits of color here and there, but it's a nice shot. I like it. It's really well done. This shot here, I love the idea. It's beautiful, really. It's a nice shot. We have all this negative space here. The only thing is, when people look at this, right when anyone first sets their eyes on this, they're going to look right here. And this is blurry, right? It looks, I don't know, looks like your focal point was like in here, right here. So like right here, we have such a thin depth of field that this part here is in perfect focus, but this part, which is a little closer to the camera, is out of focus. So what I would suggest, since you have this black background anyway and no one could see anything back here, use a smaller f-stop, get yourself a little more depth of field and focus here. And I think it would be a much stronger image. This is a nice shot. It's interesting. It's tough to get. I know you're shooting in like an aquarium, so your ISO is really high. So you get this noise. I don't know if you could see it on the video. I'm pretty sure you can. There's tons of noise, and that really cuts down on the resolution. And you're already dealing with resolution issues to begin with because you're shooting through the glass and shooting through water. So you're going to lose a lot of resolution. So this is a tough shot to get. You know, you look at National Geographic when they're showing pictures of fish. I mean, they're expensive cameras in housing really underwater, and you get a lot more detail. So this is tough to do. Color balance is usually tough to do because they usually have odd color lights coming through here. Usually for the fish's health, they'll use certain types of light and color light to, so the fish, stays healthy in a certain way. I don't know the details of it. Someone once told me this, and I noticed when I went to the aquarium, some fish had bluish lights on them, and other fish had yellowish lights on them. So it's really hard to shoot these shots. This shot too, this is like that classic Finding Nemo shot that you see. But again, it's so noisy. The noise adds though kind of to the effect in a way. So I like this shot better than that other shot. And I would consider this more of a fine art shot because of the noise. And this camera, I don't know what kind of camera you're using. With that lens, I'm pretty sure it's some type of Canon camera. But it obviously is not, it doesn't handle high ISOs too well, so it's probably a crop sensor camera. You might, if you really want to get serious about photography and doing it for a living, you're going to have to get a full frame camera someday. Not necessarily for a shot like this, but for a lot of things. You'll need a full frame camera to take pictures of weddings and portraits and things like that. This is where personal bias kind of comes in. I'm never a big fan of these building shots. You know what? I take them too. I got like dozens of these where I shot up at the building. I'm just not a big fan. This shot here, it's again, the light is kind of odd. We have all these real dark recesses. So we got not great light. Sky is super bright. Typically, you don't want a lot of bright area around the corners and the edges. You want the bright area more towards the middle. So I don't know if you wanted that white there. Maybe that's what you went for. I still wouldn't recommend it. I would at least vignette it a little bit. I think it adds to the effect better. There's before and there's after. Okay, now this shot here is 55 millimeters, so you're kind of compressing everything a little bit. And this, you have a heavy vignette here. It's an interesting shot. I like what you did. The vignette I think is a little too heavy. I think this leading line, this starts us off. This has to be a little more prominent. So it's kind of being heavily vignetted. So I would lighten up the vignette a little bit. Also, it would be if something else was in this road, walking along, a car or something, I think would help the image too. This is a really cool shot. I like this a lot. This is another one, even though it's a landscape, it's a fine art image. And as you look at it, you can see the sky got that painterly effect to it, and the windmills, very painterly. And so it's a very interesting shot. I think it's very nice. I think this would be a shot that could be sold as a fine art image. This shot here, I like what you did here is you made it as symmetrical as possible. You even caught it when two cars are almost equidistant on these roads from each other, and it's a really nice shot. And this is a really cool shot. I like it a lot. This shot here, now this is where I talk about light again. This, as you can see, we have this really harsh light. We have harsh light here and there. This site's bright. This side is brighter than this side. So it looks like it was kind of cloudy. I'm wondering if you could have waited a little while and maybe the clouds would have went over the sun just temporarily and you could have got this shot, still had clouds in the sky, this nice sky, but you would have had even light. Then you could have opened up shadows and the shadows would have opened up evenly. And what I mean by that, right now if I go down here and I take shadows and I open them up, this side is still always brighter than this side. So these that were in the shadows, see how these are all in shadows, these are in shadows. If I open them up, they're still brighter than over here. So it doesn't look balanced. So really, if I could give you just one tip, Dave, is to be a little more aware of light and how the light affects the image and how it's going to get recorded on your camera's sensor. This is a nice shot, very symmetrical. I like what you did. This shot here, I like it a lot. I like the angle you took on it. I like this. So it's kind of leading lines. Now we have some nice shadow here. This isn't really harsh shadow, it's soft shadow. The camera resolution though, because the red is so intense, it's kind of blurred. You see that? And I'm not so sure if it's your camera or the processing, but if you could pull the saturation back of this color just a little bit, I think we might see some more detail. It's a nice effect. I like this. And again, I'd call this a fine art image, and I like the shot. I think he did a nice job. This shot here again is light. You can see this harsh shadow down here. We have really all this part in darkness over here. It's a cool, scene, but it's just the light is just making it very harsh. Again, this is light. We have speckles of light on his face. It's a fine shot. Like the previous one, as far as focus, did a great job. I think you do fine. I think your composition is great in most instances. Your focus is pretty good in most instances. You had the one with the flower, that I suggest. But pretty much, I think is light. And when we photograph animals in the zoo, we always try to make it look like they're not in the zoo. So this is a hard shot to get because he's partially obscured by this tree. We have this fence or gate back here. We have this over here. So it's a hard shot to do either way, but the light wasn't doing you any favors here. This is some great panning shots. You did a really nice job. This is an excellent shot here. This one here, just as good. Excellent panning. 1/125th of a second f/9 ISO 100. So Dave just panned with the car and gently pushed his shutter button at a certain point. So all this is blurry because his camera was moving left to right, but the car is in really crisp detail because he held the camera still enough where the car is in very good focus. His shutter speed was just slow enough so the wheels are blurred. That's what we want. We want to make it look like the car is, we want to show the viewers that the car is moving. So the blurred background and the blurred wheels are what accomplishes that. The blurred background by panning and the wheels by having the shutter speed just slow enough so you see that blur. This is a nice shot too. I like the other ones better. This one here, because you're at 1/125th of a second, there's some blur in here. So, this shot was a little harder to pull off. This shot, I like the idea. I like everything you did here. A couple things though is I would suggest something else be in the shot. A pet, a little kid, a person walking through the, down here, a couple holding hands. The second thing is it looks like it's just starting to get dark. I'd like to see the shot when it's more twilight, and a lot of times we call it dusk dark, where it's not quite night, but it's not really daytime either. These lights here would have played a more prominent role in the shot. I assume we'd have some lights on in these buildings, so that would be add to it, and it wouldn't be so dark that we wouldn't see the sky anymore. So I'd like you to hang around and get this shot again with the what I call dusk dark. This is another one with light. It's really impossible when the light is this harsh coming through these trees. It's a cute shot. I like it. We cut off this bird's tail here. We don't want to do that. We want to get the entire bird. But it really in this shot, because they're obscured by the branches, and you'll see wildlife photographers, they actually create perches where they know they're going to get an unobscured shot of the bird perching. So they'll, we won't have branches in their face or anything like that. Also, they'll put the perch that they created in a place where they know the light is going to be flattering. And in this case, we have this kind of weird side light coming through, and it's not helping the birds at all. This shot too, it's kind of tough to do. Real busy background. You can see how busy it is back here. You did a nice job of focus though. The bird, is well focused, so he jumps out, whereas everything else is a little bit blurred. But it's really a tough scene to photograph. And really, I think what you'll learn after a while is if you can't work the scene to get a decent shot, you'll just keep walking and look for something else to shoot. I like this shot a lot. It kind of tells a story. I like shots like this. The sneakers in the mud, really well done. We have some blurred part in the foreground, which helps push everyone's eyes towards the sneakers. I like that you got in this entire, I think it's a frame of a soccer net, in. So it's really well done. Very, very cool shot. This is more like a snapshot, like this bird happened to be hanging or looking at itself in your mirror, and you took a shot. It's interesting, but it's not, it's not something you're going to be able to sell or anything like that. And you kind of intimated to me that you want to be a professional photographer or want to improve your profession. So this shot here, it's just a nice shot to get. The shot I like, again, this is the ISO 800 didn't do you much favors. You could see there's still a lot of noise. I don't think your camera, I'm not sure what kind of camera you use, some type of Canon though, but it doesn't handle high ISOs too well. And you can see when you use this high ISO though, you're losing some detail. You did a great job on focus though. You are focused on the eye of the lizard. Really well done. I like it. So it's all blurry around it, and he's the only thing that's really in focus. And you did a real nice job, real strong focus too, very well done. But I don't think your camera's doing you too much favors on a shot like this. If we could get some more detail in him without that noise in there, I think it would be a stronger shot. But technically, what you did was perfect. You did a really nice job. So again, kind of that light I'm talking about before. You can see how this part of the bird's bright, and then we have shadows down here. So it's kind of hard. The light, and also the background is kind of busy too. You did shoot at 5.6, which blurred the background out a little, but it's not far enough away from us to really get blurred out totally. And it's, again, technically you did a nice job on focus. All that's fine. This shot here now, the focus is a little off, like that one flower shot I mentioned before. We want to focus on his eyes, and they're a little blurry. It looks like the focus is back focused a little bit, so it's focused on the wings here. So on a shot like here, 1/640th of a second, f of 4. I'm not so sure. Kind of blurred. A busy background too. This is a tough scene, really, to photograph as I look at it. I think you'd want to move around, try to get a less busy background, because it would make this dragonfly pop. It would pop out of the scene better if you could have it in total focus, so you'd use a smaller f-stop. But of course, if you used a small f-stop in this scene, all this back here comes into more focus too, and everything blends together, and it looks bad. So we really got to work the scene, find an area where you look around. Dragonflies and damselflies usually land a lot, they'll land in the same spot, like not just the single damselfly or dragonfly, but you could have 100 of them flying around, and it will seem like everyone will want to land in this one spot. So you find those spots and find like a background, a backdrop that is attractive, and then position your camera in such a way and pre-focus a little bit, so when you do have to hit the focus button, hopefully you're using rear button focus and not focusing with your shutter button. So let's say you focused here, right? This dragonfly comes down, lands here. You just real quick put the single spot focusing right on his eye and hit it, and your camera lens won't have to move far to focus. It will do it really quick, and then you could take the shot. And I think that's what you got to do, is kind of work the scene and try to look at the areas where first and foremost, where the light is going to be nice on the subject, and secondly, where the background is attractive. It's a nice shot too. Again, it's busy. It looks like it was a busy scene, so you might have had a hard time, finding anything, like I said. But you did a real nice job on focus here. This one's a little more flat to the sensor, so we don't have the eyes in front of the body and the tail in the back. You know what I mean, like that last one. So really nice job on focus here. F of 4, to blur out the background. I understand that totally. I would just say try to get yourself in a different position where you didn't have all this stuff in the background and you could really just blur it out. It's a nice shot. I like this composition. Like I said, Dave, you do compositions fine. Usually, just a couple little focus issues. This one here I think is a little bright though. I would bring exposure down just a little bit. Like half a stop maybe, just a little bit. There's before, after. And again, this goes back to calibration of monitors. I mentioned many times, make sure your monitor's calibrated. But I think this is a really nice composition. I think that's the last one. Wow, we got through all 30. Dave, thanks so much for sharing your work with us. I really do appreciate it. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. I think technically you do fine, and artistically you do great. I think you just have to be a little more concerned about the light and how it's reflecting on your images, on your subject, I should say. And I think just be careful of that focus a little bit, and I think you're fine. And that's it for now, guys. I'll talk to you guys soon.